want to lay eggs and all, they need a suitable climatic conditions, a suitable location to lay eggs. So this is called as spawning migration. Other one is climatic or seasonal migration. Migration in search for suitable climatic conditions. If that particular area is not having proper or suitable climatic conditions, or sometimes it might be too hot for laying eggs, it might be too cold to lay eggs and all. So whatever is their preferable climatic condition, they go to that particular area, which is called as seasonal migration. Next, coming to osmoregulatory migration. Migration for water and to balance the electrolytes from sea to fresh water and vice versa. That means if there is no enough water in that particular area or the electrolytes are not balanced enough in that water, then in that condition also fish move either from sea to fresh water or from fresh water to sea. The next one is juvenile migration. What does it mean? Juvenile is the larval condition. So the larva migrate from spawning ground. So once the fish lay the eggs, the larva comes out and that larva, they go to their original habitats, to their parents' place. This is called as juvenile migration. Now, so what are the types of fish that usually migrate from one place to another place? Anguilla, Anguilla. This is a kind of eel, and Anguilla rostrata, Anguilla vulgaris, salmon fish, and hilsa. These are few types of fish. Now, apart from these, what are the other reasons for their migration? One is sexual maturity, then hormones, instinct, predators, and competition. So, what is predators? So, for example, in a particular area, the fish, if they feel that they are in danger, there are big fish who might eat them, or they might be a competition for their survival, competition for their food, etc. In those conditions, also fish prefer to move in order to save themselves from those predators. They go to another place. Another one is scarcity of food. Just now, as we discussed, if there is no enough food, they go to another place. And these abiotic factors, what are abiotic factors? Light, temperature, pH, water currents, etc. Even these are also the reasons for their migration. Next, how do they move from one place to another place during the migration? There are different types of movement. The first one is drifting movement. It is a passive movement of fish along with the water currents. That means to say, in whichever condition the water current is moving, the water is moving in the same direction, the fish also move, which is called as drifting movement. Next is dispersal movement. It's a random locomotory movement of fish from a uniform habitat to a diverse direction. So there is no proper direction how the fish is moving from one place to another place. It's randomly they move from one place to another place. So which is called as dispersal movement. Next is coming to swimming movement. So it is an orientated movement of the fish towards or away from the source of stimulus. What is stimulus? To which we react actually. So that is called as stimulus. So sometimes they want to move away from that stimulus. This is called as swimming movement. Next is denatant or concomitant movement. It is an active swimming movement. Denatant movement is swimming with the water current, while concomitant movement is swimming against water current. So as we discussed in swimming movement, as some fish can move along with the water, some or they can move against the water current also. Next, types of fish migration. So how many types of migration are there? So the migration of some fishes is a regular journey, as we have just discussed. They move from one place to another place. So what are the types of fish migration? The first one is diadromous migration. So it is the migration of fish between sea and fresh water. As we know, most of the fishes are restricted to either freshwater or seawater. Changes in habitat may cause osmotic imbalance in those fishes. However, some fishes regularly migrate between sea and freshwater, and have perfect osmotic balance. They are the true migratory fish. So it means when the fish are moving from one place to another place, there can be an imbalance in their body temperature or the osmotic imbalance it is called as. But some fish can, even though they move from one place to another place, they can maintain proper balance. So these are considered as the true migratory fish. Now, this migration is of two types. One is anadromous migration. What does it mean? It is the migration of marine fish from sea to freshwater, from, from freshwater to seawater. Then, what happens in this? Fishes spend most of their life living and feeding in sea. They only migrate during breeding season to the river for spawning. Examples: salmon, hilsa, lamprey. These are the few types of fish. Salmon migrate for breeding during winter from sea to river. While migrating, some physiological changes occur. So, what are those physiological changes that occur? They stop feeding during the journey. So, whether the distance is small or large, during their journey, they don't feed. Then, changes color from silver to dull reddish brown. So, the skin color also changes during the migration. Then, their gonads mature, and then they select suitable spawning ground and make a saucer-like nest in which female lays eggs and male releases smelt over them. So juvenile larvae hatched out from the egg known as alevins. These alevins then transform into par and metamorphosized into adult when returned to the sea. Then the second one is catadronomous migration. So what happens in this? It is the migration of freshwater fishes from river to sea during breeding season. In anadromous, what happens normally? They migrate from sea to freshwater. Here it is freshwater to sea. The example is anguilla species. Is a kind of eel fish. Then another example, both European eel, that is anguilla or Anguilla vulgaris, and the American eel, that is Anguilla rostrata. They migrate from the continental rivers to Sargasso Sea of Bermuda in South Atlantic for spawning, crossing Atlantic Ocean. So they cross all the Atlantic Ocean and they go for spawning. Before and during migration, some physiological changes occur in their bodies. So what are those physiological changes? They deposit large amount of fat in their bodies, which serves as reserve food during the journey. So we know the purpose of fat in our body. Whenever we are not having enough food, whenever we are starving, the fat only we utilize it as, the stored food. So we derive energy from the stored fat. The same way fish also does the same thing. Next, the second one is Potamodromous migration. So it is freshwater migration of freshwater from one habitat to another for feeding or spawning. Examples: catfish, carps, etc. Then we have Oceanodromous migration. So it is the migration of fish within the sea in search of suitable feeding and spawning ground. Example: tuna fish, clupia, tumas, etc. Then we have latitudinal migration. It is the migration of fish from north to south and from south to north. So this is called as latitudinal migration. So from north direction to south direction they can go, or from south to north also. Any direction they can migrate. So why do they migrate during in this directions? Because of the climatic conditions. Sometimes in the north, if it is autumn, they go to spring. If it is spring, they come to autumn. So it is a climatic migration. Example: swordfish migrate north migrate to north in spring and south in autumn. Next, we have vertical migration. So it is a daily migration of fish from deep to the surface and vice versa. Why? For food, protection, and for spawning. Examples are swordfish. So they usually move vertically downward to greater depth for food. So some fish they go down or some from deep to the surface or from the surface to depth also they can migrate. Then shoreward migration. So it is the migration of fish from water to land. However, it is a temporary migration because when they come to land from water, they can't survive without water. So that is why it is considered as temporary migration. And eel is the best example. So it migrates from one pond to another pond via moist meadow grass. Now, what is the significance of fish migration? One is to find suitable feeding and spawning ground, for protection from predators, to survive from extreme climatic conditions, increases genetic diversity. It is an adaptational characters for survival and existences. Now, this is the picture of eel. You can see the labeling, the body parts, anterior dorsal fin, posterior dorsal fin, caudal fin, and it has so many external gill slits also, and it has a large eye, eye which is now. What are the physical features? The physical features include a conjoined dorsal and anal fin running lengthwise from the middle to the tail. In some, pectoral fins are present, but other limbs are absent. Eels' body shape and fins contribute to their swimming agility, allowing for forward and backward movement. Their color and pigmentation serve as camouflage within aquatic environments, assisting in both predation and evasion from predators. So, what is the meaning of camouflage? That is the ability to change the color of the body. That is, they can adjust the pigmentation. Why? Why do they have to do this? To protect themselves from the predators. So, they have the capacity to change the color of their body. And next, eels embark on a remarkable migration journey to reproduce, one that has long fascinated scientists. One is European eels, Anguilla anguilla, and American eels, Anguilla rostrata. They converge in the Sargasso Sea, a region of the North Atlantic Ocean. This location is unique due to the Sargasso's characteristic gyre. So it has a large system of rotating ocean currents, which plays a crucial role in the life cycle of eels. Then, the significance of the Sargasso Sea lies in its floating vegetation and the interplay of magnetic fields which are thought to guide eels through their migration. Spawning typically takes place between winter and early spring. Once in the Sargasso Sea, after a journey that can span thousands of miles from rivers and coasts near Europe and North America, including the area around Bermuda, adult eels rely on external fertilization. They release eggs and sperms into the water where fertilization occur. Now, eel species vary widely in size. Now look at the picture. In this, we can see the different sizes of eel fish. They can range from the diminutive 10 centimeters, that is 4 inches, deep sea eels, to the robust giant moray, which may exceed 3 meters, about 10 feet in length. Specifically, the European eel, that is Anguilla anguilla, known for its extensive migrations, generally grows up to 1.5 meters, that is almost like a human being, the size of the height of the human being, around 5 feet. So these are the larval stages: Sayama larva, Anguilla larva, Gymnothorax larva, Conger larva. Now, they even change their color from yellow to the metallic silver gray during their migration. And digestive tract shrinks and they stop feeding, as we discussed. So during their migration, they don't eat feed. So what happens? The digestive tract shrinks. Then the eyes get enlarged and vision sharpens. Other sensory organs also become sensitive. See, they should be very careful during the migration. So their eyes get enlarged and their vision sharpens because they need to protect themselves from the predators. So during their journey, they should not fall prey to other larger fish. So these are the precautionary methods that they take. Then skin serves respiratory organ. So skin serves as the respiratory organ. So this exchange of gases takes place through the skin. And gonads get matured and enlarged. They lay eggs in suitable spawning ground and are fertilized by males. After spawning, what happens? They die. The larvae hatch out and develop into young eel and finally return to the river. Next, as we were discussing, the example is eel for the migration. The best example is the eel fish. So how do they reproduce? Eels, members of the order Anguilliformes. These are the group of elongated marine and freshwater fish. They have captivated scientists and naturalists for centuries with their complex life cycles and their breeding habits. These species, they are commonly known as European eel, together with its American and Japanese counterparts. They undergo a remarkable transformation and migration that is critical for reproduction. The reproductive journey of eels, like the anguillate species, begins with a migration from freshwater habitats to specific marine regions, such as the Sargasso Sea for European and American eels, where spawning is believed to take place. So these are the two kinds of eels. One is European and another one is the American eel. So they go to the other places, freshwater. They migrate to freshwater habitats for spawning, for laying eggs. The transition from freshwater to saltwater, it's a pivotal play that it's the very, very important role in their life cycle. So going from fresh water to salt water. Fish that are living in fresh water, it's not easy for them to adjust in salt water. So adult eels, they undergo physical changes to prepare for the oceanic voyage and reproduction once they reach the spawning ground. So how interesting it is throughout their life. So till now they've been living in fresh water only for spawning purpose. They're migrating to salt water. So many physical changes they need to undergo so that they can live comfortably in the ocean. Next, although direct observation in their natural habitat is limited, it is understood that eels likely reproduce through external fertilization, where the female releases eggs and the male releases sperm into the water column. So what is external fertilization? So we all know the fertilization is of two kinds. One is internal fertilization and the second one is external fertilization. So internal fertilization is something that happens in the body of a female organism, where the fertilization occurs inside the body. External fertilization is the female releases eggs outside into the water, whereas uh, s- male also releases sperm into the water. So in the water, the fertilization is taking place. So what is fertilization? The combination. Okay. the male sperm with the fusion of male gametes with the female gametes is called as fertilization. So in eel fish, it is external fertilization. Now, so how do the behavior, the spawning behavior? Most eel species migrate to specific spawning sites to reproduce. Upon reaching sexual maturity, eels' body produce hormones that trigger their migration to the areas. So once they attain their maturity, the body produces certain hormones. So it is understood that they are ready to lay eggs. They are ready for spawning season. So notably, the European and American eels are believed to spawn in the Sargasso Sea. So they from freshwater, only for spawning purpose, they go to, who are those? These European and American eels, they go to Sargasso Sea. They migrate to Sargasso Sea. Now, reproductive anatomy. So inside the eels, the gonads mature as they approach their spawning grounds. Just now we were discussing what are the changes that occur in their body during their migration. During their migration, they stop feeding, their eyes become wide open, the skin color changes, and they respire through skin. And they are very cautious to protect themselves from the predators. So, the another one is gonads also mature at this time. So males, they release the sperm and females release eggs into the water column, a reproductive strategy known as external fertilization. Then, upon hatching, eel larva, what is the name of the larva? It is leptocephaly. So this larva, it begins the next phase of their life, that is the larval stage. Here the larvae are carried the Gulf Stream towards their juvenile habitats across the Atlantic Ocean. Okay, so these larvae start migrating through the Atlantic Ocean. Next, eel larva's pelvic fins are undeveloped, which is unlike those other fish species that use them for movement. So other fish uses their fins for their movement, but in this they are not developed. So the transformation from the larva stage to their eventual form as they approach European and American coasts marks the completion of their breeding cycle. Next, this particular breeding behavior underscores the eel's reliance on their unique breeding ground and highlights the intricacies of their life cycle. So what happens from freshwater only for spawning purpose, they go to marine. Which one? The Sargasso Sea. The larva leptocephaly begin from then it starts its next cycle. Then it goes back to the European and American coast, so to complete their breeding cycle. The another fish that we are going to discuss about is salmon fish. What is the life cycle of salmon fish? It has two phases, freshwater phase and marine phase. If you see the salmon life cycle, there are different, see, once they lay eggs, then alevin, then fry, par, mature par. What are these? These are the different names. The adult salmon returns to their birthplace, often in rivers or streams, to lay their eggs. This is called spawning. So once they lay eggs, this is how the eggs look. And then eggs from the eggs, they hatch out the small larva. This larva is called as alevin. And the larva matures. The next phase is called as fry. Then the fish further grows, which is called as par. And then they get matured to matured par. So till then, it happens in the freshwater. So it is called as freshwater phase. Then this matured par undergoes smoltification. So what is this smoltification? When the par reach a certain size and age, they undergo physiological changes. They prepares them for the transition from fresh water to saltwater environments. So this is called so mature par grows into smolt. The smolt this stage happens in the marine phase, marine water. This smolt then it grows into marine adult. Then they migrate. See how the life cycle of the salmon fish is. From stream to sea, the salmon life cycle is a fascinating journey. These resilient fish undergo remarkable transformations. It starts with tiny eggs in freshwater to strong adults in the vast ocean. Their migration challenges are immense, yet crucial for their survival and reproduction. This cycle not only showcases nature's wonder, but it also highlights the importance of protecting aquatic ecosystems for future generation. Now, what is the salmon life cycle? The salmon life cycle is a remarkable journey, unique in the animal kingdom. These fish travel thousands of miles throughout their lives. They face numerous challenges when they migrate from freshwater and to the ocean environment. Fascinatingly, a salmon's life can span anywhere from 2 to 7 years, depending upon the type of the species. This journey is essential for their reproduction and survival. Now, let's explore the stages of a salmon life cycle in more detail. The first one is spawning stage. The spawning stage is the start of the salmon life cycle. Adult salmon return to their birthplace in fresh water. So the only for spawning purpose, the adult salmon, it comes to its birthplace. What is the birthplace? It is nothing but the fresh water. So in the fresh water, the life cycle starts. To start that life cycle, so wherever it is because it's been in the marine area. So from that, it comes to the freshwater area. So which we can call it as birthplace. So here what happens? Females create gravel nests to lay eggs. What is gravel nest? Small sand, stones, pebbles and all that. So there they make a nest-like thing, a burrow-like thing. Males then fertilize these eggs. So they make the burrows, nest-like things and then they lay eggs in that. Then what do males do? They come and fertilize these eggs. Both females and males ensure the continuity of their species. That means both male and female take care of their eggs. After spawning, most salmon die. In this final act, the cycle of life continues as new generation begin. So ironically, it's both the start and end of the salmon life. So once the spawning is done, most of the salmon die, the fish die. Now, so what is the first one? The first stage is eggs. Salmon life cycle, it starts with the eggs. These eggs mark the beginning of the salmon life cycle. Laid by female salmon in fresh water, these eggs are nestled in gravel nests called redds. So the name of this nest is called as redds. So they're often small with a distinct orange or reddish hue. Inside the eggs, the developing salmon are protected until hatching. So the eggs are protected. So till they hatch. Once hatched, they emerge as alevin, the next life stage. This marks the start of the newly spawned salmon. So in the exam, you can expect these type of questions. What are the life cycle of salmon? So then you need to start from the freshwater stage. That is from the egg to the all the stages. So how the eggs look, the color of the eggs, how the after hatching, how the what is the name of the eggs, what is the name of the larva, all these things. So look at this picture. This is how the alevin looks. So this alevin are the early stage of young salmon. Just after hatching, they remain hidden in the gravel of the riverbed, which helps protect them. So as the female salmon is laying its eggs in the reds, that is the nest shape. So even after hatching also, these alevins remain in that water for some time to protect themselves. Attached to them is a yolk sac. Below that, if you can see the big sac, yellowish in color. So this is called as yolk sac. Their main source of nourishment, even for any egg, when the chick or any egg if you take for the hatching period, during the hatching period, it takes the nourishment from the yolk. So during this time, the important body parts like fins and all they grow. Gradually, as they grow, they transform into the fry stage, but they still remain in fresh water in that stage. So this is the next stage, FRY, fry. So this is how those small young fish, salmon fish, look like. Fry are the young stage of salmon after alevin. Emerging from gravelness, they begin to swim and start their independent life. At this stage, they start feeding on their own. Residing in freshwater rivers, fry continues to actively swim and grow. What does it mean by start feeding on their own? So they start feeding on the young phytoplankton or zooplankton that are available in the water. So they become active, they start eating, they start growing their body. Then they grow and adapt to their surroundings. Eventually, they develop into the next stage called par. So this is the fourth stage. Par is a stage in the salmon life cycle after fry. They develop vertical stripes and spots for camouflage. Living in fresh water, they feed and grow stronger. This helps them prepare for the upcoming stage in salt water. So we already discussed what is camouflage. So changing the body color or developing spot-like things, developing stripes or changing the skin color due to some kind of pigments. These are all to protect themselves from the predators. So this par stage, this exhibits camouflage. Living in fresh water, they feed and grow stronger. This helps them prepare for upcoming stage in salt water. Why upcoming stage in salt water? Because till then, they complete their life cycle in the fresh water. After the remaining life cycle, they have to go into the seawater. So they feed well, they grow stronger in order to uh, face the difficult situations in the seawater to get adjusted uh, to the salty nature of the water. So that is salt water. Now, these juvenile salmon stay in this stage for 1 to 3 years. How interesting it is. Then they transform into mature par. So the 3 years they will be in the juvenile stage only. That is the young fish. So they that is reason in the beginning we were discussing their lifespan is big. So once they complete this, after 3 years, then they mature into matured par. Mature par are an advanced stage in young salmon's life. They are larger and stronger than younger par. That is why we call them as mature par. So compared to par stage, they are more stronger, more larger. These salmon are almost ready for ocean life. One thing that distinguishes them is that they develop distinct markings and colors. That means they have different colors on their body. Different, they have some they have stripes, some they have dots and all. They have different various colors. Up to this point, the salmon life cycle has taken place in freshwater. But soon, they're ready to transform into smolt and migrate to the sea. Now, what is smoltification stage? So, when the par reach a certain size and age, they undergo physiological changes. This prepares them for the transition from freshwater to saltwater. So this condition, this stage is called as smoltification, transition from freshwater to saltwater. The smoltification stage is a major transition in the salmon's life cycle. In this stage, young salmon adapt from freshwater to saltwater living. Then they become silvery and streamlined for ocean life. So after smoltification, they migrate to the ocean, marking a new life phase. Now, what are smolts? That is the next stage is smolt. What is a smolt? Smolt are nothing but young salmon in a key transition phase during the life cycle of salmon. So after smoltification, they adapt to salt water from freshwater. Their bodies change, becoming silvery and sleek. This stage prepares them for life in the ocean. In the next stage, they are nearing their full size and form. Eventually, they will migrate to the sea, growing into adult salmon. Next is marine adult. Marine adult salmon are fully grown salmon living in the ocean. So the freshwater stage is over, now into the marine stage. So in this stage, they feed and grow to their full size and shape. They spend several years in the ocean, gaining strength. Their bodies become more powerful and better adapted for sea life. We are approaching the end of the salmon life cycle now. All they have to do is return to freshwater to spawn and completing their life cycle. So, what are the stages that we have learned in this? One is migrating stage, and another one is spawning adult. So, what happens in this migrating stage? The migrating stage is another key phase in the salmon life cycle. It involves traveling from freshwater to the ocean or vice versa. Young smolt migrate to the ocean to grow into adults. Adult salmon returns their birthplace to spawn. This journey is challenging and essential for their reproduction. It is what makes salmon unique species during reproduction. Then the next is spawning adult. The spawning adult stage is the final phase in the salmon life cycle. These are matured salmon returning to fresh water to reproduce. They often travel along long distances to reach their birthplaces. Once there, female lays eggs and males fertilize them. They often travel long distances to reach their birthplace. Next, after spawning, most of these adults die. This concludes their life journey where new salmon returns to the start of the cycle as eggs. Now, you must have seen the size of the fish, how big it grows into. It grows to a so huge, and there's so many the if you see the color of the fish inside, it looks so fresh, red in color. So till now we have discussed about how migration, what are the types of migration and all that. So why do they migrate? They migrate from one place to another place in search of food and water. That is called as feeding migration. Then gametic migration. This, this happens for reproduction, then climatic migration to secure more suitable climatic conditions. Then is osmoregulatory migration. This is to adjust themselves, adjust their body to the heat and temperature and all that. This is called as migratory osmoregulatory migration. Now, a fish can make migratory movements by several methods. One is by drifting. Fishes are carried passively by water currents. This is called drift and may result in the directional movements if the overall water movement is in one direction. Then other one is random locomotory movements. Locomotory movements that are random in the direction lead to a uniform distribution or to an aggregation. If fishes are released from a point in a uniform environment and spread out in all directions, the process is called as dispersion and leads to the distribution of species. Then we also discussed about swimming movement. So what is this swimming movement? Fishes swim in a particular direction, either towards or away from the source of stimulation, or at some angle to an imaginary line running between them and the source of stimulation also. Then what are the parameters for this migration? A fish showing high degree of return may visit many areas more than once during the course of migration. In some cases, only one area is visited more than once in return migration. Normally, in most cases, what happens? The spawning area is the area which is visited most precisely during return journey. For example, many Pacific salmon return precisely to the same breeding area where they themselves were hatched. The feeding areas in the ocean are much more diverse, and succeeding generations of fish may feed in different locations. So, if one generation goes to another one place, the next generation may go to another location. It depends. Now, what are the causes? Causes, and we have learned the causes. That is, what is the reasons for their migration. Now, what do you think the advantages of migration? According to Nicole Sky, migration is an adaptation towards abundance. The spawning or nursery ground may not have enough food to maintain both the mature and immature members of a large population. Hence, it would be an advantage to have separate spawning, nursery, and feeding grounds. The fact that many commercial species are migratory supports the view that migration is an adaptation towards abundance. Further, there appears to be some advantage to a species whose adults return to spawn in an area where the environmental conditions were similar to those under which they themselves survived when they were young. So, a return to the parent spawning ground provides a means by which the favorable conditions may be exploited. Thus, a better egg and larval survival would lead to a greater number of spawners on a particular ground. Fish are often dispersed widely over large areas while feeding, but congregate at specific spawning grounds to enhance reproductive success. Precise timing of spawning migration ensures simultaneous arrival of sufficient number of both the sexes at one place to ensure reproductive success of the group. Now, so what is that we have learned in this? We have learned about the types of migration, that is catadromous, bottomodromous migration, oceanodromous migration, and anadromous migration. See, these are the different types of migration. I'm just showing this slides again so that you can make a note of all these points. Oceanodromous migration, latitudinal migration, and vertical migration, shoreward migration. And what is the significance of fish migration? One, the important point is for feeding and spawning, and then to protect themselves from the predators, and to survive at extreme climatic conditions, and to increase the genetic diversity also. How do they increase their genetic diversity? If they're at one place, maybe genetic diversion may not occur. When they migrate to another place, the male of different another area uh, during fertilization, so the genetic diversity can occur. So it is an adaptational characters for survival and existences. So there are so many varieties of eel fish. So we've learned about eel, we have learned about salmon fish also. Now you can expect the types of questions. What are the physical features of eel fish? How do they look? How they can change the color? How the fins look like? What is the shape of the body? All this. And what are the types of eels? Where do they grow and where do they go for spawning? So you need to mention these are the two important eels. One is European eel and American eel. And what is the sea? That is the Sargasso Sea. And they might ask you what is the importance of the Sargasso Sea? Why do they go only to Sargasso Sea? Because of its floating vegetation. So the lot of vegetation in this sea. So they can grow healthy. It's a very perfect and suitable area for fish to lay eggs there. So in which season they go? Between winter and early spring. And what are the different larval stages of eel? What is the size of the eel? So they might ask, the question may arise like this also. Mention the different sizes of eel fish, mentioning along with their larval forms and all. So you can just go through this picture. What is the uh, adult name? What is the larva name? Conger, that is congridae. This is the adult. The larva of this conger eel is conger larva. Then gymnothorax. So the larval stage is gymnothorax larva. Anguilla. So this is angular larva. See you can see the shape and the size of the larva. One nemesis. Okay, this belongs to Simidae adult. So the Sima larva. And they can also ask questions like, what are the detailed patterns of migratory fishes? Or write about diadromous migrations, or detail about migration, give a detailed structure about history of migration, or what are the methods to study migration of fishes. So various questions like this. They can also post questions like, how do they reproduce? What are the common names? What are the names that are mentioned, the scientific names of these, the complete reproduction of eel, the life cycle, the journey, the spawning behavior, the reproductive behavior, and what is the larva of eel, leptocephaly, describe the leptocephaly, the behavior of leptocephaly. All these questions you might expect. Next, from Salman also, you can definitely expect this question for 20 marks. Describe the life cycle of Salman. So we need to describe the two two phases of life cycle. One is freshwater phase, marine phase, and you have to describe what is spawning, what is Then the egg stage, the next, the larval stage, alevin, the fry stage, the par stage, the matured stage. So till here, till that par stage, they complete the freshwater phase. And then coming to smoltification. So you have to explain the definition of smoltification. What is smoltification? And what is the purpose of smoltification? Because they are moving from freshwater to marine phase. So their body needs to undergo so many physiological changes. So they are preparing their body to live in salt water. So this preparation, this phase is called as smoltification. And then from smoltification, their life cycle starts in marine phase, marine water. So then the matured part grows into smolt. Then the smolt changes into marine adult. Then after that, the marine, again, once it matures, it gets matured, it goes back to its birthplace. What is the birthplace? That is nothing but the freshwater. From then again, it starts the freshwater phase. See, look at how a salmon fish looks. The size is so big. Their lifespan is 2 to 7 years. 7 years they can grow huge in size. How does alevin look? And what is the purpose of this yolk? It serves as the nourishment for the growing larva. And what is the use of this? Why do they develop these stripes and those dots? So what is that process called as? It is called as camouflage. So why do they undergo this camouflage? To protect themselves from the predators. Then what is the difference between par and mature par? So this par stage, it is little delicate, where it develops stripes and spots. And the main important thing is this is the juvenile stage. And in this stage, par stage only, it remains for 3 years. So after 3 years only, then it gets matured into matured par. Then it develops, once the matured par, it develops different colors, different, the size increases. Then they transform into the adult one. Then the smoltification stage. What is smolt? What is marine adult? So what are the different stages of salmon's life? So these are the questions that we can expect. Where do salmon live? What are the differences between the freshwater phase and marine phase? How long does the salmon life cycle take? Do the salmon undergo salmon life cycle? This is a kind of fish, soke. This is a kind of salmon fish. Does it also undergo life cycle? So, hope you all have understood this. So, with this, I'm concluding this chapter. So, again, this is the fourth unit from Migration of Fishes. This is BSc second year, fifth semester students. You can go through this video whenever you are preparing for the exams. This PPT will be there. Prepare well for the exams. Thank you.